Thanks for stopping by another episode of the Prospects Corner presented by the Traveling Hoopers. Today, let's go ahead and get into some notes from Geico's Nationals that will also be helped out from legit sports stats from St. James Classic as well. Roughly on the 10 teams that are in here, I want to say 7 of them also played during St. James. So that's just like a nice little sample size that's going to be helping us out. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to take these teams in tiers, and that basically just means by segments of games. So for our first tier teams, we're going to be looking at La Lumiere Pace Academy in Melton High School. First up is going to be La Lumiere, and the first prospect we're going to get into is going to be Treyton Thompson. He is a 2021 recruit, and he is going to go play his college basketball at Minnesota. He's a 6'11 kid who can really run the floor. His length was enough to bother Biddle, which is saying a lot because Biddle is also a 7-footer. He did a lot of his damage in the post, showing he has really good defensive tools that are going to be a standout for him at Minnesota. He also rebounds and finishes well around the rim. Next prospect up is going to be JJ Starling, who is one of the stars for this La Lumiere team. He's another kid out of the 2022 class, and he really looks like he has all the makings of someone who's going to be a conference point guard wherever he decides to go to school after next year. He didn't have a great shooting performance in this one, but good awareness and quickness helped him to 4 steals. Another part of Starling's game that's really big is how crafty he is when it comes to finishing around the rim. He can do it with both hands, hitting from many angles, and he just kind of knows how to get to the hole whenever he gets the chance. Another 2022 prospect for that La Lumiere team is going to be Chisholm Okpara, and he is just physically built. We're talking about a guy who's standing 6'7", 6'8", and probably close to 220. He's just massive. And after playing in 2 national events, especially with the competition that is there, I think it's time for him to go ahead and get his 4th star. He's currently a 3-star, but what he does on the defensive end is kind of game-changing. For a wing that big, he covers so many positions that it's kind of hard for most people to get around. He does a really good job of getting downhill, so whenever he gets into his head and gets a step, he's going down, he's going to finish at the rim. He can take contact, he can give contact. He's actually a really good passer for the position. He is second in assists on this team. He actually shows a little bit of wiggle with the ball in his hand as well. And just in terms of finishing around the rim, it's second nature, especially on the break where you can really see how gifted he is athletically. Rounding out La Lumiere's 2022 prospects is going to be Vincent Ugochukwu, who at 7 foot is one of the longest prospects that we really have in that entire class. And it all resulted in a really good defensive performance. We're talking about a guy who could block Biddle and Adem Bona with ease, and it's just a wall in the paint. Yes, he's still thin. He is still figuring things out on the offensive end, but when you have those type of defensive tools and he shows what he shows on the offensive end, being able to step out and hit threes occasionally and even be able to put the ball on a bounce every once in a while, with a kid like that, the sky's the limit, especially when we're talking about him as a defensive prospect. With that being said, Ugochukwu is still raw, but he is making strides and he chains moves together in a really surprising fashion for a guy who can have lapses at times. All right, next up is Pace Academy coming out of Georgia. First guy we want to talk about is Cole Middleton, who is probably the most muscular 6'6" forward that I've ever seen. He's going to Cleveland State, and just his physicality makes up for all of his height. He might not be the biggest forward, but he's going to beat you up. And he's also really a finesse player at the same time. He has good feet. He took advantage of everything he had against Oak Hill, who's not really a big team. But even there, where there's guys who are 6'8" and going to play at the Division I level, it was really easy for Cole to go ahead and take their lunch. Another senior on the team is going to be Matthew Cleveland, who is going to fit in just fine with Florida State's wings. We're talking about a guy who's 6'7", 6'8", again, who's super athletic, long, and just kind of knows how to move around on the court. He shot off the range from his jump shot, making 2 3-pointers, and one of those being a deep pull-up three. He is a true above the rim finisher who's going to have some really fun times in that nose jersey. And rounding off Pace Academy's names is going to be Josh Reed. And we're looking at another big wing who take and make a lot of threes, but also can help out on the boards. His ability to put the ball on the ground is also a plus for him. Middleton High School and their star sophomore, Kanaan Carlyle. We're looking at one of the quickest, craftiest guards with the ball in his hands out of the class. He is a scorer so far. Carlisle needed a ton of shots, but he did score 22 points against some of the best juniors in the class when he played IMG. He answered back in big moments, giving them timely buckets, but it just wasn't enough for Middleton. And one thing that I've noticed is when he is operating out of the triple threat, because he is so quick, once he hits that jab step and directs you, wherever he decides to go next is going to be to the rim. And for a guy who operates well in traffic, he's going to make plays, he's going to get to his shot, he's going to get to the rim. He's another fun guy to watch in this young 2023 class. All right, and looking at Kanaan Carlyle's backcourt mate, we're looking at Bruce Thornton, who is going to go to Ohio State next year once he graduates. We're looking at one of only 3 guards in this entire event that had 9 assists. And this is against IMG, one of the top 5 basketball programs in the nation. All right, and with Wax Hatch Academy, we enter Tier 2. Our first guy up is Kentucky commit Nolan Hickman. I really like Nolan Hickman. He is a dog. He actually reminds me a lot of a 6'2" Tyler Ulis. I know that's saying a lot because Tyler Ulis did make an SEC all-defensive team, but he's not going to be a slouch on the defensive end. He's more of a playmaker, scorer type than anything. He's one of those 3 guys that we're talking about with Bruce Thornton, who finished the night with 9 assists. He did not have his best shooting performances while at Geico's, but for a guy who I've been watching over 13 games this year, he scored 17 points. Kentucky is not going to have to worry about a guy like Hickman because he can score from all 3 levels and he loves to get his teammates involved. Next up for Wax Hatch is going to be Fusini Tregore, who I personally love in every single game I've watched of this young man, which is rivaling with Hickman's 13. The term dancing bear has popped up, and for a guy who's 6'7", well into his 200s and just built like a bear, he does everything he needs to do. He's strong, he's physical, he's going to rebound. He might not be a supreme athlete, but for a guy his size, he's going to carve out space in the paint. He's going to give you a solid rebounder, a guy with a high motor, and plus a bit of a rim protector for a guy still just 6'7". The next guy up for Wax Hatch really gets after that on the defensive end. We're talking about Robbie Armbester, the 6'6" combo forward. He was just a blanket on the defensive end. He brings energy, he brings effort, and he's going to be a finisher at the rim. In addition to that, he's also a good shooter on low volume from 3. The next guy up for Wax Hatch is going to be Roddy Gail Jr., the 6'5" guard who has enough size to play small ball 4 at the high school level. We're talking about a guy who can absorb contact. Any bumps he can take without coming off balance. It's a great thing for his driving, which is one of his strong suits. He's currently committed to Ohio State, giving them one of the best size combinations that you can have on the perimeter, especially for someone who's going to be locked in as a defender. Rounding out our Wax Hatch guys is going to be Richard Isaacs, the highly coveted 2022 guard. With the ball in his hands, he is grease lightning. He's a super quick guy who can make plays, but is also wired to be a scorer, and that's exactly what opens up his passing game. Once teams have keyed in on him as a scorer, that's when everything opens. He's able to find everybody off screens, whether he's cutting, going to the rim, he's going to get them open. And most importantly, he has a lot of fight. In all of the games that I've watched him, all 13s that I've watched him in, he is going at it hard every single time. And even in this elimination game at Geico's, we saw him fight to the very end to make sure his team had a chance to win. We get into our Tier 2 teams with prolific prep. First person up is going to be Adem Bona, who is just a grown man at this point in the game. At 6'10, he's big, physical, and just a super freak athlete. Through the 2 games he played, he totaled up 10 blocks. That's good for 5 a game. That means 6 against La Lumiere, who has 2 7-footers, against 4 against Sunrise Tristan, who has some of the best athletes and arguably the second best high school basketball team in all of high school basketball. He can kind of do everything. He's really athletic. He can really get out and run in transition. We're talking about freak athleticism in the transition game, and we're also talking about anything above the rim, he's going to finish it. He's also a fantastic offensive rebounder, which means really big putbacks. There was one play that just kind of summed up how freakish Bona is, with Grady Dick going for a dunk attempt later in the game, and Bona just swallowing him up on the block. Like, we could not see Grady on the screen for a couple seconds. Like, he's a physically imposing dude, which makes him a great pick and roll partner. In addition to being an alley oop magnet, he is also going to be a great diver because he's so intense the entire game. Next up is going to be Nate Biddle, a top 10 prospect in the class of 2021, going to Oregon. He is a super long 7-footer, and that length affected every shot that came in the paint that he was near. He's going to be an amazing defensive prospect. He's going to be an amazing defensive prospect in that Pac-12. He picked up a charge. He blocked several shots. He averaged 2.5 blocks per game to go along with 9.5 reboards, where he also averaged 3 of those being offensive boards. Biddle's going to be a magnet for any of those perimeter stats that you can think of, especially over the next couple years. He's also going to be a person who's going to pick up a few assists a game just through outlets. He has good vision down the court, and he can really fling that ball down the court, and he's only going to get stronger. So that means that ball is going to come in darts eventually. Next up is going to be Milos Uzon, who at 6'4" has a ton of size to go along with that point guard position. He also plays a really smooth game that reminds me of a lot of Pac-12 point guards today. A game that's really going to transition into the college game. He's a good passer. He knows how to read situations. He manufactures assists, especially in the transition. There was one particular play where he gets the ball. He's coming up in the transition, and he's all by himself. He slows the ball down, moves to the left of the court for a streaking Bona who comes out of nowhere and finishes a little flick alley-oop pass from Uzon, and it's all by his design. He does certain things like that in the half court as well, especially off pick and rolls. He's just a really heady guy who's going to be able to run a team and get everybody involved. Now, the guy out of prolific prep that played well is going to be Stefan Todorovich, the recent SMU signee. At 6'8", he is a big shooter, and that comes with accuracy and volume. During these games, he hit at least 2 3-pointers in each attempt, and he is not shy about getting those attempts up either. Following that 2021 class update is going to be another guy with Kamari Lands, who's going to Syracuse. He is a big wing who fits the Syracuse mold to a T. He has energy, he rebounds, he can hit the 3, and most importantly, guys, because he's 6'8", he's super switchable along the perimeter and occasionally even the post. But as far as his perimeter game, he can really get out there and match up with most guards and wing. And to close out prolific prep, we talk about Mohamed Gabe. He's a super fluid 7-footer that can really run the floor, and in flashes shows crazy things, like being able to pick up a steal from a point guard, or like getting your own rebound and pushing you up and looking really good in open transition, being able to dribble and have moves out in the open court. There was even a play where he caught the ball, he surveyed the floor, dribbled just to find a better passing angle, and it worked out for him. It didn't exactly lead to an assist, but still something smart and heady to look out for a guy who's 7 foot and very fluid.
Once again, Calvin McGowan, hope you enjoyed yourself. If you are watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, leave something in the comments. You can also listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. If you made it this far, once again, thank you. I hope you got a lot done of whatever it was you were working on while listening to this. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.